I'd played in local bands before that, and then I got into Ozzy and just thrust right away into playing arenas. One of the first...
At 68, Jake E. Lee drops a bombshell that has fans reeling. After decades of silence, he finally reveals jaw-dropping truths about his time with Ozzy Osbourne. From hidden conflicts to unexpected moments behind the scenes, Jake's shocking revelations are shaking up the rock world. You won't believe what he's saying now. This is the story every Ozzy fan has been waiting for. Stay tuned to hear it all. Jake E. Lee's early life was shaped by a unique blend of cultures and a quiet determination that would later define his career. Born Jake Lou Williams on February 15, 1957, in Norfolk, Virginia, he grew up caught between two worlds. His mother was Japanese, and his father was of Welsh descent. This mixed heritage made him stand out in a time when America wasn't always accepting of differences. At school, Jake faced teasing and felt like he didn't fully belong anywhere. He wasn't American enough for some, nor was he fully connected to his mother's Japanese roots. This sense of being caught between worlds left him withdrawn and quiet, and music became his escape. Jake's mother was strict and wanted him to learn classical piano, starting him on lessons when he was just 6 years old. For years, Jake practiced diligently, even though he wasn't allowed to listen to the rock music he secretly loved. This classical training built a strong foundation for him, helping him understand music deeply, not just as sound, but as structure and emotion. But piano wasn't where his heart was. When he was 13, Jake quietly switched to guitar, a move that gave him the freedom and expression he had been craving. He started listening to legends like Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix, playing along whenever he could, even though his mother didn't approve. This period of his life was marked by discipline and silence. Jake didn't rebel loudly or make a scene. Instead, he chose to express himself through his music, practicing hours in his room, letting his guitar speak for him. His quiet nature wasn't weakness, it was his armor, a way to protect himself from the challenges he faced growing up. Music became his closest friend, the thing that helped him make sense of the world. As a teenager, Jake began playing in local bands in San Diego. These were small gigs, but they were important steps in his journey. He wasn't chasing fame, he was simply honing his craft, building skills, and finding his voice. When he decided to move to Los Angeles, a city buzzing with musicians and competition, Jake knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. LA was crowded with talented players, all fighting for a chance to be seen. But Jake's quiet confidence and unique style helped him stand out. He joined several bands, gradually making a name for himself in the underground music scene. A key moment came when he was introduced to Sharon Osbourne through Wendy Dio. Sharon was looking for a guitarist to replace Randy Rhoads, who had tragically died. Jake auditioned against some of the best, including George Lynch. It was during a rehearsal that Jake played a riff so original and powerful that Ozzy Osbourne said, "This guy's crazy, and I like it." That quiet boldness and technical skill earned him the spot. Jake's early years were about steady growth, quiet determination, and a deep love for music. He didn't seek the spotlight or the drama of rock and roll excess. Instead, he let his guitar do the talking, setting the stage for a career that, while often underappreciated in the public eye, left a lasting impact on heavy metal music. Jake E. Lee's time with Ozzy Osbourne marked both the peak of his career and the beginning of a series of silent struggles that would shadow him for decades. When he joined Ozzy's band in the early 1980s, the heavy metal world was changing rapidly. Fans were hungry for new sounds, and Jake's style fit perfectly with the energy Ozzy needed after the tragic loss of Randy Rhoads, the band's previous guitarist. Randy's death had left a huge gap, not just musically, but emotionally, and Jake stepped into a role that was as challenging as it was promising. The first album Jake worked on with Ozzy was Bark at the Moon, released in 1983. This album was a game-changer. Its sharp riffs, soaring solos, and hard-hitting rhythms showcased Jake's ability to blend technical skill with raw emotion. The title track became iconic, a fan favorite that many still consider one of Ozzy's best. But despite his huge contribution, Jake's name was nowhere to be seen on the songwriting credit. Officially, Ozzy Osbourne was the sole credited writer for the album's songs. Jake later revealed that he had been pressured into signing away his rights to the music. Sharon Osbourne, Ozzy's wife and manager, told him that if he didn't sign the contract, he would be out of the band. Faced with a difficult choice, Jake signed. This meant he would receive no royalties or official recognition for the songs he had helped create. This betrayal was a deep wound, one that Jake carried silently. He never publicly fought the decision, choosing instead to keep his focus on the music itself. Working with Ozzy was not always easy. Behind the scenes, Jake had to navigate a complicated mix of personalities, business pressures, and the intense expectations that came with being in such a high-profile band. Ozzy was still finding his footing after Randy's death, and the atmosphere was charged with grief and uncertainty. Jake was the new guy, stepping into a spotlight that could be both exhilarating and unforgiving. Despite these challenges, Jake's guitar work stood out. His playing was precise, expressive, and powerful. Unlike many metal guitarists of the time who focused on flashy solos, Jake combined speed with melody and structure. His solos told stories, with emotional highs and lows that matched the mood of the songs. Fans and fellow musicians recognized this unique voice, even if the industry and media often overlooked him. The success of Bark at the Moon led to a world tour, and Jake quickly became known as a formidable live performer. On stage, his playing was electrifying, yet he maintained a quiet presence. He wasn't about showmanship or theatrics. Instead, he let his guitar be the star. This was a man who had learned early in life to speak through his music, rather than words or gestures. Jake's second album with Ozzy, The Ultimate Sin, came out in 1986. It carried forward the momentum of its predecessor, featuring heavier riffs and a polished production. The album was a commercial success, with singles like Shot in the Dark gaining significant radio play. Once again, Jake's guitar work was a highlight, earning praise from critics and fans alike. Yet, as with the first album, his contributions often went unrecognized publicly, buried beneath the larger Ozzy Osbourne brand. Behind the scenes, Jake faced ongoing struggles. His relationship with Sharon Osbourne grew increasingly tense. The same woman who had helped him join the band now held enormous control over the band's business affairs. Jake felt marginalized and disrespected, especially after being cut out of the songwriting credits. The lack of transparency and fairness in the business side of things left him feeling isolated. After the tour for The Ultimate Sin, Jake found out that he had been fired. Not through a conversation or any direct communication, but by reading a news headline announcing that Zakk Wylde was his replacement. This sudden and cold dismissal was another blow. Jake had poured his soul into the music and the band, only to be discarded without explanation. This pattern of being pushed out without warning became a painful theme in his career. Throughout this time, Jake kept a low public profile. He never lashed out or sought revenge through the media. Instead, he focused on his craft and tried to move forward. His silent strength became both his shield and his burden. Many fans admired his humility and dedication, even if they didn't know the full story behind his absence from the spotlight. Despite these struggles, Jake's influence on heavy metal was undeniable. His work on Ozzy's albums shaped the sound of the era and inspired countless guitarists. Yet, his story is also a reminder of how talent and contribution can be overlooked or overshadowed by industry politics and personal dynamics. After his departure from Ozzy's band, Jake embarked on a new chapter with his own band, Badlands, where he sought creative control and artistic freedom. But the scars of his time with Ozzy and the silent battles he fought behind the scenes remained a part of his legacy. Jake E. Lee's years with Ozzy Osbourne were a mix of triumph and quiet suffering. His guitar spoke loudly in the music, even as he chose silence in the face of personal and professional challenges. It is this contrast, the blazing riffs paired with a reserved spirit, that makes his story both compelling and poignant. A tale of success shadowed by silent struggles. After parting ways with Ozzy Osbourne's band, Jake E. Lee found himself at a crossroads. The bright lights and thunderous applause faded, leaving a silence that was both daunting and filled with possibility. Determined to carve out his own path and reclaim his musical identity, Jake formed the band Badlands in 1988. This project was more than just a new band. It was a fresh start, a chance to make music on his own terms without interference or control from others. Badlands was a classic hard rock group, steeped in blues and metal, blending power and soul in a way that reflected Jake's personal style. The lineup featured some talented musicians, including Ray Gillen on vocals, Eric Singer on drums, and Greg Chasson on bass. This band became Jake's new family, a unit where his artistic vision could thrive. With Badlands, Jake poured his heart and soul into the music, crafting songs that were raw, honest, and deeply emotional. The band's self-titled debut album, released in 1989, received praise from critics and fans alike. It was a striking departure from the glam metal trends dominating the scene at the time. instead hearkening back to the roots of rock with a heavy blues influence. Critics compared Badlands' sound favorably to classic albums by Led Zeppelin and Guns N' Roses, praising Jake's guitar work for its blend of technical skill and heartfelt expression. This was the music Jake had always wanted to make, a fusion of intensity and feeling that truly spoke to who he was. However, just as Badlands seemed poised to break through and make a lasting impact, the musical landscape shifted dramatically. The early 1990s saw the rise of grunge and alternative rock, genres that reshaped popular music and sidelined many bands rooted in the classic rock and metal traditions. Badlands found themselves swimming against the current, with labels and audiences shifting their attention to new sounds. Despite the band's talent and strong debut, they struggled to gain the mainstream recognition they deserved. Their second album, Voodoo Highway, released in 1991, pushed their creative boundaries even further. The music was heavier, darker, and more experimental, reflecting the band's growth and willingness to explore new territory. Yet internal tensions began to surface. Conflicts over the band's direction, pressure from their record label, and personal struggles among the members created friction. Jake was committed to staying true to his artistic vision, resisting pressure to conform to the grunge style that dominated the airwaves. This resistance, while admirable, made it harder for the band to gain commercial traction. Tragedy struck in 1993 when Ray Gillen, Badlands' charismatic lead singer and close friend of Jake's, was diagnosed with AIDS. This devastating news rocked the band to its core. Ray's illness rapidly progressed, forcing him to step back from touring and recording. His health declined quickly, and in December 1993, at just 34 years old, Ray passed away. For Jake, this loss was not only a blow to his band, but a deeply personal heartbreak. Ray was more than a bandmate. He was a trusted companion who had stood by him through ups and downs. Following Ray's death, the future of Badlands became uncertain. The band's momentum stalled, and the wounds left by their loss made it difficult to move forward. Jake retreated from the public eye, entering a period of near silence that lasted for nearly a decade. Fans wondered if the gifted guitarist had retired or disappeared from music entirely. Rumors circulated about struggles with depression, financial difficulties, or simply stepping away from the spotlight by choice. Yet Jake never offered many explanations. He chose to keep his pain private, living in the shadows, away from public scrutiny. In 1996, Jake quietly released a solo album titled A Fine Pink Mist. This instrumental record was a far cry from the high-energy rock of Badlands or his work with Ozzy Osbourne. It was a deeply personal project, a collection of moody, atmospheric pieces that showcased his guitar's emotional range. Unlike typical album releases, Jake did little to promote the record. It felt more like a letter to those who understood him than an attempt to regain commercial success. This album revealed a musician wrestling with his own inner world, channeling feelings of loss and reflection through haunting melodies. After A Fine Pink Mist, Jake again withdrew from the music scene. He didn't participate in tours, festivals, or media appearances. This silence lasted for years, adding to the mystique surrounding him. Yet during this time, Jake never stopped playing or writing music privately. For him, music was not a career or a path to fame. It was a necessity, a way to survive and make sense of life's hardships. Badlands and Jake's early solo work are now regarded as underrated gems, influential to many musicians who followed. His unique style, combining technical mastery with soulful expression, left an imprint on the rock and metal world despite the commercial challenges. Yet his story also serves as a reminder of how the music industry's changing tides and personal tragedies can alter the course of even the most talented artists. In the mid-2000s, Jake released Retraced, a collection of covers from some of his favorite blues and rock artists. This album was a quiet nod to his roots, showing his deep respect for the musicians who had inspired him. But once again, he returned to the shadows, avoiding the limelight and remaining largely absent from public view. Life continued quietly for Jake until a shocking event in 2024. While walking his dog in Las Vegas, Jake was shot 3 times by assailants attempting to steal a neighbor's motorcycle. The gunshot wounds were serious. His arm, leg, and back were hit, with a fractured rib and damaged lung. Miraculously, none of the bullets struck vital organs, and Jake survived the attack. This incident underscored the fragility and unpredictability of life, especially for someone who had already endured so much. Despite the physical and emotional trauma, Jake remained resilient. He refused surgery on his hand, which was affected by cartilage loss, instead adapting his playing style to manage the pain. His dedication to music never wavered, and he expressed a desire to complete a long-postponed tour with his band Red Dragon Cartel, demonstrating that his passion still burned strong. Jake E. Lee's journey through Badlands, personal loss, and silence reveals a man of quiet strength and unwavering devotion to his art. His story is not one of glamorous fame, but of perseverance, dignity, and the deep bond between a musician and his music. Though the world may have overlooked him, his legacy lives on in every note he played, inspiring those who listen closely to hear the music beneath the silence. Jake E. Lee's later life was marked by a mix of quiet resilience, unexpected challenges, and an enduring legacy that quietly influenced generations of guitarists. After years of navigating the highs and lows of the rock world, from his time with Ozzy Osbourne to the heartbreak and struggles with his own band Badlands, Jake settled into a period of reflection and relative seclusion. Unlike many of his peers who chased fame or publicity, Jake chose a path that kept him close to what mattered most to him: music, integrity, and personal peace. In the years following the early 1990s, Jake's public appearances and new releases became rare. After the tragic loss of Ray Gillen, his close friend and Badlands vocalist, Jake was deeply affected. The death left a void not only in his musical projects, but also in his personal life. This pain, combined with the changing music landscape where grunge and alternative rock dominated, made it difficult for Jake to regain his place in the spotlight. Rather than forcing his way back into the public eye, Jake embraced a more private existence. During this quieter period, he focused on his craft away from the pressures of fame and commercial expectations. In 1996, Jake released A Fine Pink Mist, a solo instrumental album that reflected his introspective mood and deep emotional landscape. Unlike his earlier hard-hitting rock work, this album was more subtle and atmospheric, showcasing his technical skill and soulful expression in a raw, unfiltered way. However, Jake did not promote the album extensively, which kept it largely under the radar, resonating mostly with dedicated fans and fellow musicians who understood his style. Jake's choice to step away from the limelight also meant that rumors and speculation swirled around his life. Some thought he had retired from music entirely, while others believed he struggled with personal issues like depression or financial hardship. But those close to him knew that his retreat was not about giving up. It was about preserving his authenticity and living life on his own terms. Jake didn't need the noise of the industry. He needed the quiet where his music could thrive without compromise. In 2005, Jake released Retraced, an album featuring covers of blues and rock classics. This project was a nod to his musical roots, paying homage to the artists who had inspired him. It showed that despite the years of silence, Jake's passion for music remained alive. Yet, after this release, he once again receded from public view, continuing to live life away from the spotlight. One of the most startling moments in Jake's later life came in October 2024, when he was the victim of a violent attack. While walking his dog near his home in Las Vegas, Jake was shot 3 times by thieves attempting to steal a neighbor's motorcycle. The injuries were serious, including wounds to his arm, leg, and back, with a fractured rib and damaged lung. Despite the severity, Jake survived and was rushed to intensive care. This event shook the music community and reminded fans of the vulnerability beneath his tough exterior. What was remarkable, though, was Jake's response to this traumatic event. Known for his quiet strength, he didn't express anger or bitterness publicly. Instead, he acknowledged the hardships he had faced over his life, saying simply, "I've been shot many times in life. This was just the first with a real gun." His calm acceptance of adversity reflected a deep resilience shaped by decades of personal and professional challenges. Jake's injuries required rehabilitation, and doctors discovered cartilage loss in his right hand, which threatened his ability to play guitar. Surgery was suggested, but Jake chose to adapt his playing technique instead. He learned to use more elbow movement and found ways to manage pain without invasive procedures. This determination to continue making music despite physical limitations underscored his dedication and love for his art. Throughout these later years, Jake remained a figure of inspiration for many musicians. Though not always in the spotlight, his influence was profound. Fellow guitarists often cited him as a major inspiration, praising his unique blend of technical precision and emotional depth. Unlike flashy showmen, Jake's style was about feeling. Each note carefully chosen to tell a story, to convey something beyond the music itself. His story resonated with many who saw in him a symbol of quiet perseverance. He was a reminder that success isn't always measured in fame or awards, but in staying true to oneself despite the obstacles. Jake's career may have been marked by moments of being overlooked or uncredited, but those who truly knew the music understood his importance. The soaring solos on Bark at the Moon and the heartfelt riffs with Badlands left an indelible mark on rock history. On a personal level, Jake's later life was one of choosing peace over chaos. He lived modestly in Las Vegas, far from the frenetic pace of the music industry's centers. His home was a sanctuary filled with his beloved guitars, amplifiers, and memories of a lifetime devoted to music. Friends and fans who visited spoke of his humility and grounded nature, a man who valued authenticity above all else. Though he never married or had children, Jake's relationship with his guitar was often described as a lifelong partnership. He cared for his instruments with devotion, treating them as extensions of himself. One guitar in particular, he kept for over 30 years despite its worn condition, a symbol of his enduring connection to his craft. Jake's legacy is complex but undeniable. He may not have sought the spotlight or collected trophies, but his influence continues to echo through the music world. His unique sound, combining melody with raw power, set a standard for guitarists who followed. For many, he represents the artist who chose integrity over commercial success, who let his music speak when words were not enough. In reflecting on Jake E. Lee's later years, it's clear that his journey was about more than music. It was about resilience, identity, and the courage to live life honestly. Through personal loss, professional setbacks, and physical challenges, Jake remained devoted to his art and true to himself. His story offers a powerful lesson. Sometimes the greatest impact comes from those who stand quietly in the background, shaping the sound of a generation without ever needing to shout. Even now, as he continues to recover and adapt, Jake's commitment to music never fades. His planned tour with Red Dragon Cartel and ongoing creative work show a man who, despite everything, still finds joy and purpose in his guitar. Jake E. Lee's later life reminds us that passion endures, that legacy is not always loud, and that sometimes the deepest music is made in silence.